It's a day early, but we're here.
We are.
Don't know
No,
why we didn't think about this until like yesterday. Oh yeah, we could just do the show a day early if I'm going to be out of town.
yeah, it would really help if you would do this cool thing like tell me you're not going to be available on the day we have it scheduled.
Well, I told you on the
Beforehand.
air last week that I was probably going to skip, and you begged and cried and sniffled a little bit, and I think you even got a little booger in your mustache in the process. You were all upset and verklempt, and I agreed begrudgingly that I wouldn't leave you all alone.
I told you to get an alternate.
Also, this Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas camera work you're doing here is something else. David comes in like 40 seconds before showtime. He goes, just in time. Bam! Crash! Everything fucking falls. It was amazing.
I went to go move my Stein, and so my camera is held up by this clip on an arm, right? That I adjust around so that I don't have to constantly keep fiddling with it most of the time, except for showtime. I can just move it out of the way and move it back in.
Right.
So I took my Stein and went to go put it down on the desk, and it caught the clip, and it just went pop, flew off.
That's amazing. Well, I just realized I hadn't cracked open my first beer yet. Well, technically, I was at a happy hour earlier and had 1.5 beers. Half not because it was bad, but because I had to go. But we'll talk about those beers some other time. I may actually pick up some of them from the sponsor of said happy hour and do some tasting. Hola, Rob. Rob is here on the YouTube. We are live on YouTube and Facebook. And it is time for us to have a nice, well-policed show where we're going to attempt to fall well under our maximum because I still have packing to do because I'm heading to Dragon Con in Atlanta tomorrow. I will fly to Atlanta and I will fly home on late Tuesday night. So David would have been all by his damn self, or I would have been doing some weird handheld sloppy cell phone version of 20 minutes of participation while various sorts of inebriated, and I really don't want to do that. This is one of my only real vacations. But the one thing that I was working on is ready. The Thanos Infinity Gauntlet with ice cream cone is behind me tonight, sitting on its side instead of standing up. It's done. It's prepared. My big comedic prop that I will be carrying while I party, along with a purple apron, a little purple ice cream visor. It's a douche visor. The hair sticks out of the top. And yeah, so I'm doing the ice cream man. It's going to be fun. Not giving away ice cream, giving away straws with little ice cream charms on them, which, fuck it, they're requiring masks, so the straw's useless too. But whatever. Anyway, David, how are you?
I'm well.
He said in his grumpiest, judgmental, coming to us live from the study sort of tone.
Yes.
It's like cutting from the Rocky Horror action back to the doctor. Anyway, if you're here, feel free to say hi. Feel free to participate. Feel free to drop in any kind of comment. Boneheaded half-truths, fine. I'm sure David will correct them, or maybe you're correcting one of his, but we're glad to see you here. Thanks for joining us one night a little extra early. We always start off with a little thing called the Hot Take Happy Hour. David, I think you're leading us off tonight. So tonight's Hot Take Happy Hour, here we are. This is the stuff that we're going to run through real quick. David, take it away, sir.
So, I mean, I've been hearing a lot of stuff about, and I someone brought it up to me last night, and I didn't have time to correct them. And it's just, I would say overall, it's one of those smaller lies that that Republicans are passing around. But for a lot of people, it's the wider implication of the government is coming to take your money. So within the Inflation Reduction Act is this provision for hiring, quote unquote, 87,000 new IRS agents. The problem is it's not really 87,000. That 87,000 number is kind of a lie. And here's why. First of all, it's over 10 years. So if you take into account the number of people leaving the IRS, that only gets us up to about a little over 20, maybe 30,000 IRS agents added to the today's payroll. The problem is that still doesn't get us up to what the IRS was, the number of IRS agents that were enrolled all through the 90s, right?
Mhm.
The goal of this provision is to staff up the IRS to the same level it was in the 1990s. It's just so disingenuous, and of course they're saying, well, they're going to deploy these IRS agents against all these small businesses to make sure you're paying your taxes. Small businesses, in my experience, generally pay their taxes. Why? Because they can't afford to be audited or go to court with the IRS, and they know that, right?
Right.
In fact, most of them just automate their tax systems, right? Whatever I take in, I have a system that automatically kicks off the right amount of money to an escrow account. Then I just pull it out when it's time to pay my taxes. If I don't have enough money in there to pay my taxes, then that's going to be a different conversation. But I'm usually going to have an accountant who's going to help me with that, right?
Well, you know what it is, David. It is classic horseshit.
Right.
What they're really afraid of is that rich people will get caught with all of their tax cheating, and they're trying to, as they are so good at, lie to their shit-heeled constituency that everything that might happen to them could happen to you as a regular guy. They're coming for you, and if you help me, I'll make you rich. It's the same lie that they've always peddled.
It's so bald-faced. It just shocking.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I think this comes on the heels of whittling and chipping away and making sure that the IRS was gimped over the years.
Yeah,
and then of course there's all the anecdotal stories of some mom and pop somewhere that did some dumb shit with some paperwork and they were audited, which is really usually not a very big deal.
No,
anything from a fucking 5-minute phone call to a little visit of reviewing paperwork. I mean, the Republicans paint this image, and this image was painted in my childhood in the Reagan era. And so I grew up with the impression that the IRS would, come to your house and kick your door in and fuck you up if you did anything wrong.
And why? Why was that picture painted in those years? Because the merchant banks,
gimme Reagan era,
and the gimme and the corporate raiders were playing fast and loose with what money was taxable and what money wasn't, and they were deathly afraid of the IRS showing it. Because I mean, the one thing that it's true in business as well. Like the one thing that will get people really screwed up is money, right? Yep. It's not who you're fucking. It's not how you screwed over somebody. It's not how you didn't structure this contract very well. It's I gave you money. You were supposed to give me money, like this amount of money back in exchange for me giving you money. If you can't give me that money, then we're going to have a problem.
Yeah. It's a very interesting manipulation. It's nothing new, of course. I owe the IRS right now. I had to dig through the. It's on the very bottom of the piece of paper over here, or it's on the piece of paper on the very bottom of the stack over here of currently interesting things that I need to tend to that I keep on my desk. I owe them like $17. And for the past many years, I've owed them some level of money. It started when I supported the healthcare bill, but I got charged the fee for not having a health plan because I refused to participate in the shitty one that was available at one of my employers, where I would pay the same rate as the fucker that couldn't put a condom on and has fucking 5 kids. Like, that's not fucking fair. No, I'm not participating in this plan. Fuck you. Your over reproducing ass gets the same deal I do, and I only have 1 fucking kid. Fuck off. So I didn't participate in that. They did their own thing. I just went with good health. So I had the fee, and it built up and got paid back. Anytime I had a return, it went against my balance. I've never fucking heard of anyone. They've sent this pathetic piece of mail. They tell you the interest, if not paid, will be another 15 cents. Oh, well, fuck off then. It's going on the bottom of the stack for the next year. So it's
Right.
sitting here underneath the order form for my next creative award because I'm going to buy the creative award before I give the IRS the $17. And I don't get a knock on my door. So regular people are not in jeopardy here.
Again, it's not you owe $50 or even you owe $100 or even you owe $1,000. I
can assure you it's not for when you owe $1,000.
I was talking to a guy I work with who owed them $45,000.
Mhm.
Do you think that they were shaking his tree? No, they weren't.
They have enormous fish to fry.
Right.
Enormous fish to fry. And the Republicans over the past 20 years have made damn sure that they cleared the cooks out of the kitchen that could fry those fish, and this puts them back, and that makes them just a little bit shaky. Speaking of shisty shit with paperwork, David didn't know what this meant earlier. I sent it to him in a text message, so I decided it was going to be in our subjects here. Mar-a-Lago FBI, what the fuck barbecue? So we've done a lot of this topic lately, so we didn't want to really dive in on one of our pet or main topics.
But there's new developments today.
The new development's wonderful. It leads more and more to something's fucky in Trump land, to the tune of lots of crime. This time they're leaning in on obstruction potential.
Oh well, and that's not the one that I'm really excited about.
What's yours?
So, the whole request for a special master today presented a problem. So for those of you who don't know what a special master is basically a neutral fourth party, because you already have a neutral third party in the form of the judge, a neutral fourth party whose job it is to go through a large amount of documents and decide what is or what is not relevant to the case and remove documents that aren't relevant to the case.
It's a really goofy term, by the way. It sounds so weird. It sounds like something that your dungeon master would whip out like toward the end of your adventure. Like, but first you have to face the special master. Like, it literally sounds like something that somebody just shat out as a term. When I first heard it, I was like, what the fuck? Did he even ask for the right thing? Is this a real word?
Yeah. Well, when Cohen got arrested, right, they had to appoint a special master to determine what was privileged and what wasn't, right? Because Cohen was an attorney. The problem with this whole special master thing, though, is this. These are all government documents. Why would you need a special master?
Oh, by the way, Brian's here, and I forgot to put your greeting up, Brian, but Heidi Ho. Brian says, Heidi Ho, so special master is not a grinder thing.
No, it's not. But why would you need a special master? And then it goes back to the FBI's response to this, which is, you told us that it was just classified material in that room. When we got in there, however, but you wouldn't let us verify, A, that it was all there, and B, you seem to imply that there were things not classified material being stored in that secure room.
Like ego stroking Time magazine covers.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't think it's ego stroking Time magazine covers. What seems to be the implication here is this, is that there is evidence that his legal team previous to this case was complicit in criminal activity that was going on, not even related to the classified documents. There's been a theory wandering around that Trump was keeping his blackmail materials on other people in that room with the classified material. Now, if it's blackmail, a blackmail list, which seems to now be the implication that there might have been a blackmail vault in Mar-a-Lago to keep certain people in line of, if you don't do what I tell you to do.
They even broke into my case, my safe. They broke into my safe.
Right. So, because why wouldn't you let us? I mean, these are all government documents. Why wouldn't you let us check and make sure that they were there? Why won't you let us see? Oh, because it's not all government documents. It's now proof of more illegal activity. both on the part of Trump, on the part of his legal team, and on the part of it's becoming more likely on the part of other persons who Trump was blackmailing to keep in line.
You know, you and Brandon and all the other unpleasable millennials that I associate with don't want to give Bill Maher any credit, but you really need to go look at the clip where he goes through the treasure trove of things found in the safe. It's a couple weeks ago. It's fucking hysterical. One of them is the order form and invoice for Melania.
Oh,
The other one is a VHS tape, and it's marked P tape.
right.
It's just fucking hysterical. It's a wonderful, wonderful piece of comedy. Olivia's still not convinced, so no Bill Maher for her, apparently. Or this could be a different no thanks, but if it's different, let us know. But I'm assuming you're no thanksing.
No Bill Maher.
My
I'm still not there with you, dude.
yeah,
You're
I
still
know.
kind of an asshole.
You know, us assholes, we tend to like each other's banter. So next thing is not assholes. I wore the shirt just so I could make a quick pitch because I'm so happy to hear that it's back. It has nothing to do with me. It never can because this weekend I'm always at Dragon Con. But Live on the Green in Nashville is returning after a couple of years off. It's a huge, awesome free music fest. This was the shirt for Live on My Green, which was the version done in 2020. Where it was basically a broadcast of recordings from previous shows, and they encouraged everybody to gather in their own yard and throw a backyard party with the soundtrack broadcast by the station. Very, very inventive way to get through the COVID situation. And then, of course, 2021 just couldn't happen because you got to have lead time to be able to build a big event like that, especially if it's free, it's driven on sponsors. You can't do that if you don't have the lead time. The same thing I faced with the Zombie Walk. So now they're back, and it's only one weekend instead of every Thursday and then this weekend, which was usually what I would do, go to the Thursdays. But it's just this weekend, and if you're in Nashville, you really should go downtown and check it out because it was always one of the best things about Nashville. The other side of that door behind me is a Live on the Green poster. I get asked all the time in business meetings, like video conference business meetings, like, what is that thing on the door? And I get to tell people about this great free event that we had back in my hometown. And so anyway, I just thought I'd mention it. It's great that it's back. And then the other thing I brought to the table, David, was I have exhausted all of my avenues to try to bring charges against Commissioner John O'Connor.
Shocking.
Yeah. The chief of police actually laid out his reasoning for me, which I find, well, first of all, he used that law degree that he's got. They all should have to have, because he made a very reasoned explanation for a paragraph about why he would not let me file charges. But the fact is he was able to explain it, and he was able to even do the golden thing when negotiating with me, point to the state law and how fucked up and outdated it is, and how much he wishes the legislature would clarify so that he didn't have to establish precedent as a local law enforcement officer. I thought that was fucking great. Like, oh, okay, so you're acknowledging that the system is garbage and explaining how you're prepared to work within it.
Yeah.
So the general point being that he essentially refuses to arrest any random person for disrupting a public meeting. Therefore, he would not arrest a commissioner for disrupting a public meeting. I'm going to sit on that information unless I need it, but it's possible I will inform the whole room that no one will be arrested ever, and it's an empty threat from the mayor. But we'll see. But I did take it everywhere. I took it to the state attorney general, got the letter from them saying, nah, we're going to kick this back down to the county. Go to them if you want it. And the county won't do anything. State police won't do anything. Local police won't do anything. City attorney won't do anything. So anyway, it was a fun adventure. I hope I caused a few people some discomfort in the process, but I didn't expect anything to ever come of it. But it's interesting how you can't do shit. I tried to call about a speeding driver a few days ago. It was the one that I posted that I tore the business a new asshole, and then the chick replied and told me I was 100% right, and she threatened to fire the guys that did it, which was great. But I tried to file a complaint, a police report about that speeding, and I was told, nope, we can't take that report. It has to be witnessed by an officer of the law. Like, there's just no fucking way. Like, what the fuck is the point of having a law if a citizen can't cite it and report someone for it and get you to investigate it? Because I asked the guy, I said, well, how many doorbell cameras do you need me to line up to show you what happened? I mean, what the fuck? So it's interesting how you take a cop and they'll saunter in with their belt about how badass and how many laws they can come up with that you might have broken. You know, if you fucking film them on the side of the road, they got 5 fucking charges they can figure out.
Oh, you saw
but
that
if you're a
video too.
citizen and you want to have a complaint, fuck you.
You saw that New Jersey video as well, I take it.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
We posted about it. We are cursing less like you asked us to. Though sometimes there's not much you can do about it.
Right.
Anyway, so yeah, that's the roundup, folks. That's the Hot Take Happy Hour. That means it's time to talk beer, ladies and germs. So this is the part of the show where we talk about the first beer, and we call this "What You Drinking." Who talks first? I talk first. You talk first.
You go first. I'm going to pour this
One of my favorite lines from episode 7. Which I was loving this week, how Ryan Johnson was like, I'm going to double down on how much I say fuck you to the universe about the fact that you don't like my movie. Like, yeah. Because I liked it fine, and I don't believe that we should let entitled fucking mom's basement jockeys tell people how to make films and, you know, fuck them. Anyway, so I am drinking the House of the Dragon branded beer released by I think it's Mikkeller. It might be Mikkeller, San Diego.
Mikkeller.
I hope it's not that German. Anyway, this is the House of the Dragon IPA, session IPA. This is one of the 2 beers that this brewery has made as an official beer of the new show, the spinoff from a Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon. I had a bunch of this at my watch party that I did for the premiere on that Sunday a couple weeks ago. This one is gold-ish for Cyrax, which is or Cyrax. I'm not sure how I'm not exactly sure.
I think it's Cyrax.
So he's the dragon, or she is the dragon of the basically the character that is a result of, hey, everybody liked Daenerys, let's kind of copy her.
Right.
But there is a literary source for this, but the main girl, and there are going to be time jumps, so apparently she's not going to be 15 forever. There's going to be a jump soon. I think it's after this next episode. If you're watching the show, you know who I'm talking about. I cannot say the name right based on the spelling, but the Targaryen, soon to be queen because daddy's sick. So we all know where that's going. But I just really I stumbled into this and I like it fine, but I have to be honest, like, you've taught me a lot about how to appreciate IPAs over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And this one's just okay. Now, it is a TV show labeled beer. Like, how good can it be? But it's got a really metallic, like it was left in the fridge sitting open kind of taste going on. There's a aftertaste there of like licking can.
Right. And again, that's a result of the yeast not a lot of the time that's the result of the yeast not eating everything. And so it's leaving what are called esters in there. Also, it's a session.
Yeah.
And one of the problems with sessions that I regularly have is this. Sessions regularly come off as the current mode of thinking with sessions is that they need to be milder, right? Because it's there for you to binge drink, essentially, is the argument. So they need to be milder. They need to be lower in alcohol. You're supposed to drink 5 or 6 of them, 7 of them.
Yeah, okay, I could see that. And we did slam some of them that night for the party.
Yeah, I mean, for that reason, I'm not a big fan of sessions. And
it's
here's
4.5 too. Yeah, you're right. It's 4.5.
Yeah, they're designed to be milder. And one of the things that comes off with that happens when you're making it milder, right? So the more the yeast eats, the more alcohol it makes, right? So the session beers come off, in my opinion, and very often underwhelming because they haven't let the yeast do its job, right?
I love one of the reviews on Untapped here. Light, initially IPA, but hint of lime. It's not as bad as I thought it would be for an IPA that's 4.5.
Right. And that's the problem is when you don't. I understand people's impulse to be like, hey, I don't want like a 7%, 8%, 9% beer.
Yeah.
Like I'm about to be drinking this 10% beer.
Right.
But here's the cool thing that happens when you let the yeast do its job. It does its job.
Yeah.
It eats stuff.
And this is running
Yes.
at a 3.5 rating. So
Yeah. It
it's
eats
not
stuff.
scoring great.
It makes alcohol, yes, but it also adds flavors as it's eating all that sugar.
Right. Right.
And so that's my problem with sessions. I generally don't like them for that reason. You've got to let the yeast do what the yeast does.
When it comes to having a bunch of beers sitting on the table with all the themed food for a themed watch party, this was cool, but I was glad that I had it lined up with plenty of Dragon's Milk around it as what I still, for me, Dragon's Milk is still the official Game of Thrones beer in my house. So I'm down with that. What you got?
I have 13 Lives and RIP, or Rest in Peace, however you want to do that. So Fat Orange Cat has been selling a lot of stuff at my local store recently. They've been adding a bunch of stuff. And this, so as a member of the Suds Club over there, I get
Is that what
free,
they call it? Suds Club?
They call it Suds Club.
That's fun.
They give you a free 6-pack. Since you can't give away any alcohol for free in Tennessee, it's actually $1. They give you a $1 6-pack. This was in it, and I've been saving this because I actually had it out last time.
Alcohol laws made by preachers and farmers.
Right. So, but I had it. I was going to drink it as like a side beer, but then I looked at it. I'm like, nah, 10%. I need to actually try that on air. So I'm gonna. Okay, that's interesting. That's very interesting. It's got some really it's super smooth. There's like, for the amount of head it gave off,
Yeah,
it's
it
got
almost came over the top for you a minute ago.
Yeah, for the amount of head it gave off, it literally released its carbonation and then it was done. It's almost flat. Which it's not necessarily a bad thing if you marry that with flavor. It's got a really strong citrus hazy in the front, and a really solid piney mid note, and then just finishes. But that flatness makes it a little weird. It's super smooth when you're drinking it. I mean, it's got just this hint of carbonation when you're drinking it, but normally you get that little tickle from the carbonation.
Yeah,
this has none of that, and I don't know if maybe I let it sit too long in the fridge or what. It does have a very slight alcohol bite at the end, maybe very small, which it's 10%. You're going to get a little bit of an alcohol bite. But
yeah.
I gotta say, like, the flavors do make up for that lack of distinct carbonation pretty well. It's a very complex. It's almost I'm getting maybe mango, and lemon.
That's interesting. I think it lines up though.
And orange. It's like it's a lighter orange. It's actually, it's not mango. It's orange. It's just a lighter orange. It's like almost like a blood orange, right? It's not super powerful.
Wow, no one on Untappd seems to have left very many comments. They're just ratings, but it does come in 4.1, 4.2 ish.
I mean, here's the thing.
Seems well received ish.
It's very decent. I think, and after I gave that whole speech about letting yeast do its job, there are limits to letting yeast do its job.
Fair, yeah.
10% is normally at the higher end of yeast doing its job. I think that's what's happened here, is that we've over fermented this just slightly, not so much as to make this something unpalatable, but enough that it's flavor with none of the extra added like bells that you expect from a carbonated beer. So,
and you said that was that's part of the Reds Suds Club, but did you say it was a 6-pack or was that just a growler?
So they give you a curated 6-pack. Yeah, they give you a
Okay.
curated 6-pack. So I didn't
Got
get a 6-pack of just this. I
Okay.
got other things. Actually, I'll say about a good 50% of the time when I'm putting beers up here, it's ones that they've curated
Right.
in those 6-packs, because I mean they're always interesting. They're always unique.
Yeah.
Um,
What does that club cost?
it's $30 a month. But
Pays more than pays for the beer.
yeah, it
If
normally
you're
pays.
really gonna sit and try some beer, you're getting one every week.
Yeah, that normally pays for the 6-pack, because when I bought an independent 6-pack, because of our, like, we had a miscommunication earlier today about whether or not we were going to theme tonight. So I went to go theme,
Yeah.
and so I didn't take my growlers with me, and so I just bought a 6-pack while I was there, and that runs me about $30 for a curated 6-pack all on its own. So that normally pays for itself. And then they're very nice to me, since I work on Mondays from sun up to sundown. I can't get there in time for them for half price growler day. They're very nice with me. They're like, we know you work for a brewery. You've always been very, talkative. You talk about everything with us. We'll go ahead and let you use Wednesdays as your half price growler day.
That's really cool. That's great.
And that definitely pays for itself when I go get growlers of beer and they're half price. So I'll get like what would be like a $25 growler, and I only pay $12 for it. That, it pays for itself pretty well.
Before we drop this segment, I did want to mention there is it's good, but it's just soda. But there's a non-alcoholic version in this product line. So it's it's a dragon fruit ale, non-alcoholic sour, and it's Caraxes, which is the other. I think that's the dragon that the asshole uncle, played by Matt Smith, rides, and it's a red can, a little smaller. It's tasty, but it's kind of like decaf. Like, why? But
Right.
It was great for me to have that option, because there are some folks that don't drink that come to your party, and it's nice to be able to keep on the theme and offer that. So anyway,
I do
that
say,
was
though,
that was the
I
stuff.
find it hilarious. Again, working at a brewery, I find it hilarious when people call them like, "Do you have any non-alcoholic beer?" Like, we are a, or when people show up and they're like, "Do you have any Mick Ultra?"
Yeah,
Dude, we're a brewery. We brew our beer.
Yeah, but there are reasonably close options for people that ask those questions at a lot of breweries. A lot of breweries have learned, and I would say that at least half the time, like, not some seasons, like in the fall, but in a lot of cases, you'll find somebody that says, "We don't have that, but if you like that, try this. Unless you're just counting calories, this will be a flavor that you will like just as well."
No, and that's exactly what we do. But on the other hand, it's like, do you not understand the concept of Michelob is a brewery? They make beer. We make beer. Michelob makes money by selling their beer. We make money by selling our beer. Why would we sell someone else's beer?
Right. That fundamental question is always annoying to me. You're right. That's a good point. So it's time for the first topic of the evening, which it belongs to David. This one is coming to the table. Speaking of cranky and unpleasable millennials, this one is clearly bothering you more than it did me. I read about this phenomenon. I was like, eh. So I'm looking forward to what your take on this is. And I told David, I'm sure we're going to get into some kind of squabble. But you may have heard this phrase running around, quiet quitting.
Which, first, let's define what the hell quiet quitting is. Quiet quitting, if you actually look at what these employers are saying. Before we continue on, though, I do want to give a quick shout out to Olivia here.
That's right. I forgot there was a contribution. I totally forgot that we had a contribution to the What You Drinking Lone Pine Cinnamon Toasty Imperial Stout,
which sounds really good.
Cinnamon vanilla extract, 8% out of Portland, Maine. Strong and punchy stout. Alcohol bite finishes in a sort of cinnamon toast crunchy kind of way. Holy shit, that sounds great.
I want that. Yeah,
I got to pull down the topic, because I also almost left Brian in the dust. Sometimes Brian will do the second break, but Brian's here with our other recreational substance of choice. A little review of his own. Doing the vape thing with Northern Lights. CO2 derived oil comes in at 82% THC.
Jesus.
I'm gonna have to have a conversation with you, Brian, to teach me about some of these stats, because while I understand beer stats, I'm very new to these stats. The vape system is designed for microdosing, very discreet. The vapor still has tasty terpenes. No smell per se. Also kicks like a pissed off mule.
Right. 82% of THC sounds like it'll do that. That brings something to mind. I cannot say enough about how weird it's been. A very interesting experience with the new Buds and Brews location here in Nashville, and drinking THC infused alcohol.
I still don't understand what's going on. I have so many doubts about what's really happening there. I'm going to have to learn so much more.
So the way it works is THC is legal, marijuana is not.
It doesn't compute.
Right? It doesn't make any sense. It's a
Sounds like a whole business built on a loophole that some curmudgeon in overalls on this Capitol Hill is going to close tomorrow.
There's money, and
speaking of, I saw a cool statistic this week. Forgot where the fuck I saw the statistic, but I saw a cool statistic this week that the use of cannabis smoking products has now exceeded the tobacco business.
Yep.
That's fascinating.
Yep.
That I find to be very interesting. Brian says, like saying alcohol is legal, but whiskey is not.
Yeah.
That might be about right.
That's about where they're at. So if you can add the alcohol to something not whiskey, then it might be legal. So anyway, back to the point of quiet quitting. I want to park us back there real fast.
Yeah,
we need to understand what this phrase is. What they're saying is people are only doing their assigned job and nothing more. And I'll be honest, I've done this a lot at various points. I think it speaks to a lot to employers in America have become spoiled. They become very spoiled. If you look at the productivity of the average American worker over the past 40 years, it's gone up nearly 300%. 300%. But the purchasing power of our wages has only gone up about 70%.
Mm-hmm. In case anybody out there is wondering why we're always so pissed off.
Right. 300% purchasing power. And let me rephrase that. Purchasing power has gone up about 70%. However, cost of living has more than overtaken that, that increase in wages. Because no one in 1940s America needed a cell phone. No one in 1940s America needed to pay for internet. No one in 1940s America had to subscribe for their television. No one in 1940s America had to make car payments anywhere near what Americans have, or house payments. So even though wages have risen, the relative cost of goods has far exceeded that. Healthcare, right? That's a really easy one to point to. More than, relative to cost, that's up nearly something. I think last I checked on it was up nearly 600% over what someone would have paid in 1940s, 1950s, 1960s America for the same relative health care.
Mm-hmm.
So quiet quitting is this idea of, and Olivia said it, work to rule. And it is telling that, some of these employers are like, I was adding value. Marx, and I know this may frazzle some people, Marx had a really good formula for measuring what he called surplus labor. And what he said surplus labor was, it's the amount of value your labor adds to a product. So if I take and a lot of countries actually use that as a system of taxation. They call it value added tax. It's not. I'm not going back in history.
You're
What the
talking
hell
about Marx. You're talking about history. We're in the time
Jesus.
machine again,
Okay.
David.
Oh God. He's a valid economics, source of economic erudition. And I really hate that in America we've made that so verboten
Mhm.
for so long. But when I was in college and still a professed Republican, I really had a professor open my eyes and be like, work the formula, right? If you want to just if you want to use science, work the formula. Well, I'll be damned. Marx's formulas work out pretty well in terms of finding a usable data point to use. Yes, Sai, you are quite correct. I am always correct.
Oh yeah, sure. You're in a hurry. Put that one on the screen.
There we go. Thank you, Sai. Thank you. I am glad to gift you with my infallibility. But
It's funny because he doesn't realize that he's being mocked. So,
but I mean, back to the point. I mean, like it's the
do
amount
you
of
take-
labor. that
real
people are
quick, do you
adding.
take this to be a universal term? Because it was presented into my bubble as a term applied to remote workers.
I've been hearing it when the Wall Street Journal is publishing it.
Told you. When the Wall
Hi,
Street
Sai.
Journal's publishing it,
In
you
case
think
you
it's
haven't
universal.
noticed, I can be sarcastic too.
Yeah.
It works both ways. See, it's magic. It's
He's
magic.
sarcastic a lot. So you're thinking it's a universal term because I was really led to believe that it was being discussed in a remote work context.
I think either way, it's this fight that's happening, I think, and that has to continue happening with American employers about how much value American workers are adding above and beyond what they do. I mean, in my job, I'm expected, even though my responsibilities list is significant, it's not at the end of the day really 100% inclusive of everything that I do, right? Like the past couple of days, I've been dealing with a lot of frustration from the people that I manage about some changes that have happened, right? Or are in the course of happening. And that's not technically really in my bailiwick, right? But the way we have things set up so that my bosses, like my immediate boss, can take a much deserved rest when he needs it. I'm the one left in charge, right? That's part of my entire responsibility is, well, if he's not here, you're in charge. And that means calming them down, telling them like, hey, I'm on your side, I get it, but these are the things that we've got to do, and maybe we can have things be a little bit better once we do them. But things, especially in a lot of clerical work of, well, yeah, I built that report. I also included, notes on the report. Or, one time I remember doing a project analysis job, and I wardrived through Green Hills, which was a little bit above and beyond, right?
Yeah.
Of trying to test the, they're like, well, go test the product. Well, I'm like, well, I guess I could do it this way, or this way, but I guess the most effective means would be to drive around Green Hills. And for those of you who don't know, ward driving is going around with and searching for open Wi-Fi networks,
right,
to log into and use a product and see how it works.
It's derivative of the term war chalking, which was a hobo term for symbols drawn to represent like these people will give you money and this place will give you food and this is a safe place to sleep and all these different symbols. And so I thought it was actually a pretty cool concept when it first came into tech, just because of its historic roots. But yeah, war driving is not. It's not what some might think, as much as we talk about the inevitability of civil war in our country. Olivia points out, I've been dealing with a situation like this, scope in another department, their manager, but you know what? I'm not fixing it. It isn't my job.
Right.
I think what you're kind of alluding to is all the bullshit that gets put in under additional duties as assigned in job descriptions, right?
Yeah.
And see, the way I had this presented to me was remote focused, people doing the bare minimum so that they don't really have to occupy a lot of their day while they kind of just check out, and they may be looking for another job, or they may actually start another remote job and do it with most of their focus while basics only are done in the primary job. That's why the quitting, the quitting part of that phrase, I think was really being discussed. Now, work to rule, which is, to the rules, to be more specific, that's kind of more what I would say would be the in-person thing. And I remember struggling, philosophically struggling with this when I first went to work for a certain moderately wealthy independent technology dealer that you're familiar with. When there was very much this attempt to have a cultural ethos. It's funny when certain people like that talk about culture. It's only when it benefits them.
Oh yeah.
Where we don't have the phrase "that's not my job" around here. We all contribute, and I'm very much.
We should have that phrase. That's not my job, because the entire purpose of your hiring was to accomplish a task,
right,
in the either production or sale of a product or service.
Right.
Or let me phrase that: production, sale, or maintenance.
So here's where I will challenge you a little bit. I think that the way that the greed class is trying to spin this topic right now to vilify and divide is bullshit. I'll get with you there. But the part that as a manager in a company trying to get people to participate in shit, the part that frustrates me is I do have at least one work to rule person in the company I work for, which annoys the ever-loving fuck piss out of me, because out of the whole fucking company, this is the only person who has held out registering for our content sharing platform so that they can share first-person shares of company posts through their LinkedIn profile. The only reason that I have any patience for it, aside from the fact that my boss said, forget about it, he's just not going to be a team player, forget it, don't worry about it. The only reason I have any patience for it is because his point of it is, I really don't like being very public. I don't want to post much on social media. I'm just me. I work here. And he's also in the dev team. Big shock.
Yeah.
He's in the dark in a secluded location coding all day and doesn't want to have anything to do with like regular humans. Well, and I can at least understand the drive for it, but you have the bleed over of that kind of mentality into kind of a little bit of everything. Oh yeah. The problem it creates is as much as it can be a resemblance of a manifestation of burnout, it burns out the other people. I mean, we had a culture team leader, she took on the extra job of doing culture stuff.
And why? And again, why should you? I mean, this is one of the things. Why should she have to? Why should she have to take on? If you have,
because she thought it would be great to try to do positive things like organize a tie-dye day for the company. And out of 35 people, 10 people participate, and eventually she got burned out trying to get people to give a fuck. And so I can't blame her for feeling that way. And she's way more millennial than your ass.
So, and I want to say this, and I think that, and I would argue, millennial in one way, not millennial in another way. And here's why. I make this point to my team every single time, because I don't think that most owners or employers understand, and I will grant you, it's much more intense in blue collar work.
Yeah.
It's much more intense in blue collar work than I would say in a white collar shop like yours, which is there is a very distinct separation between the experiences of the workers and the experiences of upper management and the owners. There is a very it lends itself very easily to an us versus them
Mm-hmm.
situation in which and I always joke about this rhyme, and I get a kick out of every single all the time, which is boss makes $1, I make a dime. That's why I shit on company time. Right? And there's the new version of that, like, which is granddad made $1, dad made a dime. That's why they shit on company time. Like there's another one explaining like how screwed millennials are on that statement, because millennials aren't making a dime for every dollar. They're making less than a cent.
Right.
The in a white collar shop, I can understand where that where you're coming from. From a blue collar shop, I will say this: I have to regularly remind my workers that I'm not going to carry the company's water, right? I'm there to carry out their directives. I'm there to help them with their directives. But I'm going to mitigate wherever I can any downsides for them. My job, one of my jobs being their leader on location, is to try and mitigate decisions that are made from on high, that where very often management may not completely understand how that impacts people who are looking at the world and their employment in a very different way.
Yeah. Yeah.
People
Well,
in blue collar,
and I'm not going to read
Yeah.
through it, but Olivia made a pretty well-reasoned, detailed point here. It sounds like the cultural issue that you're describing, Olivia, is we cross-train everybody, and then you end up with people having to do everybody else's fucking work.
yeah,
I am not a fan of that. I'm just not a fan of the curmudgeonly trolls that don't want to get with any of the positive things that we try to do as a group. That's where I get annoyed. But I really feel like the thunder of this issue was coming along because of remote work for the most part. You're hearing about it in all contexts, but I think the place where you don't see this coming, because you can walk by and watch somebody work to rule. You can figure that out. In person, you can look at somebody and go, huh.
I know. I mean,
I'm just doing exactly the fuck what was written down for them to do and nothing else.
I've definitely
but
done
when you're remote, you can't do that. And I think that's what's making this a topic. And that goes back to a place where I side with my younger brethren. The obsession and the insecurity and the fight against remote that is held by people who think the only way to manage is to literally breathe down the neck of people. Above and Beyond got me a charming 3% for my annual this week, so I'm already.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the problem, is they keep on asking for Above and Beyond, but not paying for Above and Beyond.
Right.
And yeah, management in many cases, and it's one of my arguments against the current MBA culture in America that got inherited from the 80s. Is
God.
There are so many people who I understand business.
I have an MBA. I know shit now.
Who don't really understand the realities of what they're talking about. I got into it with a little bit with our new ops manager the other day about, he's like, well, why don't we offer you can pick up a large pizza and a 6-pack as a combo to sell. I'm like, dude, this is Gallatin Avenue. And I didn't want to break it down for him explicitly this way, but I'm like, and again, as part of our rule, I'm not going to tell you what brewery I work for, so we don't taint anything. But I'm like, we have a brand which is very clearly redneck, right? We sell craft beer, and our pizza is a hell of a lot more expensive than Papa John's or any of that. We're selling gourmet pizza. The few
Really
people
good
who
fucking
actually
pizza,
live
by the
in
way.
this neighborhood, and I explained to them, like, listen, this was primarily all rentals, and once Airbnb came through, these all became
God,
Airbnbs.
yeah, right.
We rely on tourists. The few like locals who actually live in the neighborhood, I'm not. I didn't go into this with him very pointedly, but I'm like, let's be honest. We have a kind of a redneckish brand, selling craft beer, gourmet pizza, and the few people who live in this neighborhood are black. Do you think that we're going to drive uh, black households in East Nashville to our brewery with this branding and these
Right,
prices?
right.
No, we're not. We don't have we don't have that kind of atmosphere. We don't have that kind of branding. We rely on tourists. And I politely pushed back against him to say, "Hey, listen, we if you want to help, send me more tourists. That's what drives my business." And I pointedly told him, I'm like, "Hey, on Mondays, I couldn't sell a beer with a gold brick tied to it, right?
Yeah.
But on Friday, on Friday and Saturday, when I've got tourist buses,
You pay for the whole week.
it doesn't necessarily pay, it doesn't quite pay for the whole week, but it drives a lot of business. But I mean, it is one of those points about quiet quitting. About there is, I think, differing expectations that can happen between upper management and people on the ground. And I
Well,
think that this
and,
whole concept of quiet quitting, I think, is that aspect of, I would say a lot of people in upper management with a lot of organizations have gotten used to workers taking on extra duties and saying, well, I get paid enough. I'll take that on. And I think that as productivity has continually increased,
paid
and,
enough doesn't go as far as it used to.
and between inflation,
Yeah.
between people not getting raises, between I mean, when's the last time anyone worked for an outfit that gave them cost of living raises, right? Okay, you get a cost of living raise. I mean, I'll look at our viewers being like, when's the last time your employer explicitly said, I'm going to give you a cost of living raise tied to what the cost of living is where you live, right? So, like, I live in Nashville.
I don't know if it's based on where I live, but I specifically at my first 1 year, there were two numbers discussed. COL, it has its own little term. We have a COL increase and then a performance increase, and your total increase thereof is
Which,
like it's
again,
two separate fucking buckets.
that
But then again, I
that
work for a company of 29 people run by a person that's not a piece of shit, and it's been around since 1994, and they know what the fuck they're doing, and
Yeah.
they treat people like
but
humans.
a lot of businesses,
Um,
a lot of businesses do not have that cost of living increase. I mean, or I mean, because I mean, imagine trying to tie a cost of living increase in Nashville to what it costs to rent an apartment in Nashville. Imagine tying a cost of living increase to the cost of what does it cost to eat in this city.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been working with
In
my
your case,
mother,
you'd be better the fuck off just handing out pizza to everybody.
right? It is a little bit of a thing, which is but
Well,
back to the
I
point.
don't want to let you forget to talk about burnout, because burnout is a big piece of this. That I know you brought that up when we talked about this topic on our planning, but I've seen it discussed everywhere. And
Did I talk about burnout? Because here's the thing: I don't think burnout is actually a thing. I don't believe in burnout.
Oh, really?
I
You
don't
don't
believe in
think you're going
burnout.
to get burned out faster by all the extra shit that you have to deal with?
Here's the thing: if you're being paid more, if you're receiving compensation for you working harder, that's one thing. The burnout happens when the harder you work and you realize you're not getting ahead for the harder you work.
Mhm.
Burnout, this entire concept of burnout is again another lie of, oh, they just got tired. No, they got fed up with what they were being paid to do, and realizing that doesn't, I'm not getting ahead, especially with something like 10% inflation that hit us a few months ago, and trying to turn around and being like, I've still got to eat.
Well, there's also another piece of that in the great awakening that we experienced with the pandemic, that people's tolerance for selling out for bullshit is a lot lower. So to me, you don't really get to have a discussion about quiet quitting without also having a discussion about people's perspective has changed. Shit, just this evening, I was working at the Chamber of Commerce this afternoon because there was a Grand Rapids Brewing was sponsoring a mixer at 4, and they were supposed to have their pizza, but they're closed on Wednesdays, so they couldn't make their pizza. So the food came from somewhere else. I lost track of the story, but the point being, I had a beer. It was not even really time for the mixer yet. The beer was just out early, and I'm me. So I had a beer, and I'm walking around, and these ladies at a table said, "Hey, come network with us. It's a networking event." And I'm like, "Okay." And I got a chair, and I sat down, and they all three work for the American Cancer Society in the West Michigan chapter. And I asked, "What are your challenges in your work?" Because that's a really good topic to talk about in a networking mixer. Because a lot of people, people ask, "Oh, what do you do? What do you love about it?" No, I want to know what your challenges are.
Yeah.
That's a better conversation. That tells me more about who you are. And
honestly,
they said volunteerism has suffered from the value of people's time. So the shit people are passionate about, they have trimmed how much they give themselves to it. So the bullshit at work that wears people thin has even less tolerance. Like all over the board, we've reevaluated our priorities.
I would argue, and I think I'm consistent. And Olivia's comment comes in right there. I could very easily tolerate all the nonsense and fuckery I'm paid to deal with if I was paid adequately for the expectations. That's what it's about. The burnout is not real. The burnout is, I'm tired of working and not getting any further ahead. I'm tired of getting great, I got a promotion. And then to turn around and realize, wow, this comes with these added responsibilities, but I'm not paid, like I'm in management, right? And I'd expect, like, now that I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, well, now that I'm in management, I might be able to, afford a little bit of luxury more than I had before. And I'll be honest, for the amount of time that I work and the amount of luxury that I can afford, there's not a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
Because the thing, and I think this is part of what gets missed, is that time is a luxury.
Right.
Time is a luxury. So, like, for me, working 50 hours a week, one of the luxuries that I built in for myself, and I worked out very clearly, was, hey, I need 2 days off in a row, which you would think that would be a given in most industries. In the hospitality industry, that's not, right. 2 days off in a row,
especially in a city that's like nuts deep in it. Like, I mean, you could do 2 days off in a row, up in Petoskey, where I was bitching about the time that things closed while we were heading up north. But in Nashville, fucking Tennessee, good luck.
Yeah, right. I mean, and that's but the thing is, that's a luxury that to imagine that something that our ancestors fought for, the idea of a 2-day, like just the idea of a 2-day weekend, and now we have to go back and fight for that.
It's funny you bring that up for this upcoming weekend, David.
Right?
The very holiday where we celebrate the fact that the labor movement, the union movement, the American fucking weekend, on Monday, fuck your hot dogs. Find a union member and tell them thank you. That's what you should fucking do on Labor Day.
Or you know what? Sign a card at your workplace.
That too.
Sign a card. But this idea of quiet quitting is, I think American workers are finally fed up.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've all gotten to the point of I'm not making and people pointed this out. You know, if you're not making enough to house, feed yourself, put a little away for when you're too old to work, which that was what Social Security was supposed to be before, and Social Security doesn't pay enough now.
Right.
I mean, there is no possible way that I could survive off whatever Social Security is going to pay me. My mother barely survives off of it.
Right.
She and her main ability to survive off it was because my father died, and luckily we held on to one life insurance policy. So she got a little bit of a payout from that, and I was very suspicious when I went to the IRS. Like, what's our tax on that?
Si's dad was an auto worker, I think. Oh no, Teamsters, right? You can correct me in a forthcoming comment. I forgot if it was UAW or Teamsters for him, but stop kissing my dad. I'm kissing my dad's ass. I'm from a union household.
But
all unions are valid except the police, because it's not. It's a fraternity.
Every worker deserves a union, number one. But you know, when people are looking around saying, I can't afford to house myself, I can't afford to feed myself well, right? People are talking like, well, you know, why eat fast food? Why not just purchase healthy? I'm like, for me, like,
because it costs too much. Didn't you watch Dr. Oz's video?
It's a big fat lie.
Right? It's a matter of how. For me, when am I going to go to the grocery store? The only 2 days I could go to the grocery store are my 2 day weekend, because every other time, if I were to try and go to the grocery store before work, right? Well, the food's going to spoil in the car. The rest of the time,
you're off on Wednesdays and Thursdays now, and I think Wednesday is senior day over at the Belmead Kroger. So if you just go in the morning, you know everything's going to be stocked up, and then you can run like it's a football game, and you can smash old people all the way down the aisle and get everything you want.
If I'm trying to eat healthy, the food's going to spoil, right?
Right.
And there's there's like prep and cook time, which I actually try and do spend Wednesday and Thursday trying to cook meals that will have a lot of leftovers, so that I can eat through the week.
Well, you also you're a guy that likes to cook.
I do like to cook.
You genuinely like being in the kitchen and making food.
I do genuinely like being in the kitchen. But on the other hand, that means that I've got maybe 2 or 3 dishes that have to last. And I'll be honest, if you're using like good organic produce and all that, even if I cut down my prep time, right, I'm still not going to have something that's going to last 4 or 5 days. I've got to use something that has unhealthy ingredients in it, namely fat, or you know, rice is pretty much a staple of my diet now. Like protein, like, you know, I like to call it bachelor chow. Protein, rice, protein, sauce. Right? That's the holy grail of eating cheap and having something that you can prep easy. But even if I wanted to try and do that, because of my hours, and a lot of people have the same problem, the grocery store closes now, right? So there's no 24-hour grocery store. The grocery store closes at 10. I get off, where I work closes at 10.
Olivia's been using local stores pickup service because she does not have the time to devote to a week's worth of shopping. And that, you know, that is that's something that I only in the last, I don't know, few months really, like, it really clicked. For a while I thought, well, first of all, obviously during COVID, the grocery pickup and all that stuff was like essential and great, and it helped everybody because the people in the store didn't have to put up with your ass inside. But for a while I was like, well, who uses that doesn't really need it? How lazy? And then I realized, oh, well, no, we have such busy lives and all that stuff. Brian points out Walmart delivers groceries, works well, but it's Walmart.
The only problem with grocery delivery that I've encountered is they will, especially Kroger, will substitute at random. But we're getting behind time.
We are going to be the time police a little bit more, so it is time to crack open more beer. And we're going to move on to the big discussion of the evening. So as we do at this point in time, we get the next round. So if you're out there ready to open your next one, it's time for another round. Are you first this time? You look like you're ready.
I am right. I'm pouring it now. So this is a little bit more commercial than I normally do on this show. It's not quite as random or crafty. It's New Belgium, right? They're a larger brewery, especially here in Nashville. They do a lot of business, but
I mean, now they own, Bell's. So
right. I'm a little hesitant pouring it back in the Stein because this 13 Lives and Rip left a ridiculous amount of sediment on the bottom of my Stein. Like, wow, that was a lot of sediment. I feel like I should have maybe shaken that up a little bit before I poured it out. But yeah, no, there were like chunks of stuff left over at the bottom of that can, the bottom, and which therefore transferred to the bottom of my glass.
Well, drink off the top. You'll be okay.
Okay. So here's what we got here. We've got a basic Belgian with its sort of lighter, yeasty kind of malt notes that sort of, again, it's that flavor you only get from a Belgian of grain, that
The Lucas hangover juice that Belgians
Right.
are.
But the orange, I'm going to be honest, does come through.
Now, see, that might hook me because I'm an orange fan.
It leads in with, oh wow, okay, that's interesting. It leads in with a strong orange flavor. With that, it's still that Belgian grain. It's still that Belgian, that unique Belgian taste. But it does definitely have a orange citrus front end. But then it finishes. But strangely enough, it finishes at the front of the tongue. Right, once it's gone all the way through. Stop playing with bottle caps on your side, damn it.
It's amazing the clarity of certain sounds that have no proximity whatsoever to the microphone. That was like all the way under my desk. That's it's a 10% part of their Belgian Reserve series, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing but rough beers, mostly because I don't have to be at work tomorrow. So this is not normally the time I would be drinking. I have to be early again next week.
Do you have a bottle or a can for that?
I have a bottle.
Let's see it.
It's a very simple bottle.
I was about to say it looks like something from like an organic food store. It's very understated,
right? Which is not normal. That's not normal. How New Belgium likes to do their stuff. They normally like to add a little bit of color.
Is there a bicycle anywhere?
There is not a bicycle anywhere. Surprisingly,
what the fuck?
It's New Belgium. But the interesting thing is, it finishes honey on the front.
That's Fat Tire that does the bike, or does New Belgium do the bike? I can't think about who does.
No, you're right. It's Fat Tire. It's Fat Tire, not New Belgium. Which I was happy that they started stocking more Schwarzbier in the form of 1554. Which, for those of you who have watched the show, will know that I will literally possibly murder people for Schwarzbier.
That's right. New Belgium has the full variety of art. No, wait, no, Fat Tire is theirs. So. It's that one that has the bike, and then you get the skull guy on all the Voodoo Rangers. That's what the deal is. There's different themes for the different series.
Yeah.
Ooh.
But I mean, what's interesting about this is the honey finishes at the
one
front.
called Beer de Queer. Anyway, yeah.
It doesn't finish at the back. That's odd. So like when you're tasting it, right? When you taste this beer, you get orange and the grain, and then kind of a neutral middle, and then it comes back to honey on the front of your tongue. It doesn't finish on the back of your tongue.
I don't know if I would mind that. I'm a fan of orange and honey, so I think all the things sound great.
It's a very interesting that is an interesting experience. I can't say I mean again, we normally shy away from larger, more name brand breweries simply because the larger a brewery gets and the larger its distribution gets, the more generic sometimes its offerings have to be. looking at you, Trim Tab, and actually New Belgium, because I remember when you all were new. But no, this is good. I like this. This is very solid.
So interesting.
I mean, I will fully confess, I'm a slut for Belgians.
You are. You taste
am-
them
I am a
everywhere. I
slut
think
for
you
Belgians.
dream about them. I think
it's
you're-
hard for it's hard for me to hate most Belgians or farmhouse saison. Like farmhouse saison and Belgian are my mistresses.
I went through a farmhouse phase, and now I'm just kind of like, eh.
Yeah, that's
Well, is it my turn now? Mine's so simple
go for it.
compared to your long ass fucking names that you always whip out. So here I go. I bought this entirely judging a book by its cover. I haven't tasted it yet.
Ooh,
And I've been,
Marzen. I saved all my Marzens for next week.
oh well, I got a head start, and plus we are reasonably in the zone. You've got the Belgian, I've got the Marzen. We just need some pretzels, which I had earlier at the freaking happy hour.
And you have a Three Floyds Marzen, which I now need to go find because Three
Yeah.
Floyds is delicious.
Yeah, I just pulled this off the shelf because I saw it and thought that the label was bitchin'. It got my attention based on label. Look at this
Right.
rad shit. Let me get this in focus. It's got like a Mecha Godzilla and a Mecha, I don't know what the fuck it is, but there's like a Power Rangers battle going on, and with a metallic label. So this is their Oktoberfest style lager or Marzen. Munsterfest, which is an interesting trivia because they are based in Munster, Indiana. So it's not just Monster Fest, it's Munster, namesake of their town. It's even got this like trippy little cap that's almost like
A pog.
yes, but
That's
it reminds
what I immediately thought of, which I may be dating
Design-wise,
myself.
it reminds me design wise of maybe oh god, who's the Georgia, the Sweetwater folks have some trippy looking designs, I think. And so it's a much trippier lid or cap than you would expect on this bottle. Like it's really wild, and I like it. I get a kick out of it. So anyway, let's do the taste because it's that time of year. So this would be the first one of the season for me.
Yeah. Which, by the way, one of my throwaways is this Duck Rabbit Marzen, which we reviewed last Oktoberfest, which is the only reason I didn't put it up here.
Oh man. Well, that's pretty good. That's in the category of damn good Marzens from various points in time that I've tried. Like I can't place it with anybody else, but I can tell you that God, that's good. It's crisp. It's exactly what it should be. But it's very drinkable. Like you could party with this beer. It's not landing hard. Also, I love look at the detail here. The very Oktoberfest little
the Bavarian Czech.
yeah. It's like on the digital screens of the buildings that they're about to stomp. It's just wonderful. And Three Floyds for me is only like a couple hours away. It's very, very North Indiana. That's what I was over here cheat sheeting. Like it's almost a Chicago suburb.
So you again, you're gonna hate my Oktoberfest I'm gonna bring next time because it's also not that far away from you, but you can't get any.
Oh, was it the fucking frogs again? Jesus.
I can't get any of your New Holland. You can't get any of my fucking Hoppin' Frog. You
can get
bastard.
some New Holland. You just can't get the full run.
Actually, I stopped myself for the sake of economy, but they did have the Dragon's Milk White Stout in a 6-pack.
Yeah,
I was like,
that's widely distributed now, though. Have you had it? Did you like it?
I
You had it at my house. Like
Yes,
before we
I've
went.
had it many times at your house.
Yeah, you can get the regular and the white in 48 states. Basically, the rule is you can get all the basic Dragon's Milk and occasionally some reserves anywhere you find PBR because they are teamed up with PBR for distribution, which is weirdly shrewd if you think about it.
Yeah.
It's the extremities of some of the most high-end, bougie, best beer in the world, and some of the cheapest, basic-ass beer in the world,
Except for
but
like grocery
mutually
stores,
beneficial to each other in all the right ways.
right? Except for like grocery stores and all those other places, I can definitely not find Dragon's Milk in a Tennessee grocery store.
You will have to go somewhere a little bit more specialized.
Yeah.
So before I close out, Monster Fest is a 6.2. It's a fest beer. I would agree with the description of aromatic Bavarian hops, noble hops, traditional lager yeast, malted barley. It's exactly what the fuck it should taste like. And according to these photographs, it pours a beautiful bronzy, goldy, perfectly festive beer. I think when we do our inevitable Oktoberfest episode, I might make sure I bring these back into the mix for that, because I'm really liking this one. Being the fourth beer since 4 p.m. for me, I thought I'd be tired of it and burned out. Like, I don't want more beer, but I'm digging drinking this one. So good, kudos, good for them.
It's a Marzen. I mean, there's always room for Marzen.
Olivia points out the using the PBR distribution, big network, exactly right. And haha, her grocery store has it. It's just you. And arguably just as far away, if not further away from here. So that's the beer for the night, ladies and gents. Now it's time to dive into the final discussion, which is the astonishingly bad handling of the GQP managing the issues in Mississippi with water, this time in Jackson. So basically, the crowd that likes to ignore climate change keeps finding their gooses done come home to roost. Basically, flooding ruined the water treatment system in Jackson, Mississippi, making the water undrinkable and dangerous. And that's a crisis. It's not good news. It means a state of emergency being declared by the, Cletus Bubba shitheel governor that played a part in ignoring the problem to begin with. The mayor of Jackson, which is a dynamic young black leader, so obviously not getting along at all with the redneck white governor. There's been a history of warning, like, hey, we're going to have an issue. Hey, this is not good. Hey, this is bad. Hey, we should probably deal with this infrastructure problem. But the party that is very good at ignoring infrastructure until the absolute last minute has once again prevailed in causing an absolute shit show. And that, of course, is what we're seeing unfolding now. Brian points out the Jackson water debacle has been a slow-moving train wreck waiting to happen for many years. It's environmental racism, and it's bearing fruit. Nasty, lead-laced, sewage-filled fruit. Excellent, excellent way of phrasing that. David, I think you were gonna. Well, let's see. You don't mean to tell me decades of ignoring critical infrastructure might cause a problem? You think? So, David, you had a little background on some of that racial infrastructure.
Yeah, one of the things that's always, because I've actually been following this for a little bit, because Jackson's been having water problems for years, especially since all the way back to after Katrina. There was damage to their water infrastructure. Starting about 3 years ago, they were already having problems delivering water. The last series of storms has obviously pushed them all the way over the edge of not being able to deliver drinkable water. The sad thing is, like, when you go back and review, okay, so Jackson is the largest city in Mississippi. You'd think that the state would invest some money in making sure that it had drinkable water. But no, every time Jackson has gone to the state and said, okay, so we are your largest city. We do generate taxable income at a rate higher than any place else in the state, obviously, because we are a city. But we need money to fix our water supply issue. And the state has consistently said no. On the other hand, suburbs of Jackson, which in many cases have more affluent, melanin-deprived individuals, they haven't had any problem. First of all, and I want to point out it's a dual problem because the state has said, well, these communities are contributing more to their water infrastructure, therefore will match them, right? And Jackson has said we have problems that we have to deal with now, like today. We don't necessarily have the money to go and rebuild a massive water water sanitation and distribution issue. We need some of the money that we've been providing you, the state, back. And as a Nashvilleian, this hits really close to home.
Back to our old point that we always bring up, David. The cities are pumping in all this financing to these fucking hillbilly fucking governments in these states, and they're getting fucked.
I mean, as a Nashvilleian, this really hits home because, again, what do we need? We need public transit. And we can't get public transit because the city keeps on trying to go back to the state and say, we need some of the money that we provide you back.
Well, never mind the money, the autonomy. The state keeps
hey,
legally interfering.
Listen, if we didn't have to pay you all that sales tax, if we could collect the whole freaking 10% sales tax that we slap on everything, then yeah, we could easily afford revamping our public transit, because that's what Nashville needs. Is the critical problem that Nashville has right now is that we have no means, except unless you have a car, of moving from place to place, right? Yeah. And the frightening thing, the thing that really frightens
in a state that actually has the tiny little lima bean balls to look you in the eye with a straight face and say, driving is a privilege,
right?
As opposed to fucking what?
And again,
sprouting wings,
right? And again, like the other thing that frightens the hell out of that same legislature is, of course, the only way that we can provide public transit, that level of public transit, is to follow Chicago's example and build an L, right? Which terrifies them even more. They're like, do you mean I can see it? Yes, you'll be able to see it all the time.
You have to see all of those common working folks and all of those dark-skinned individuals, sometimes occasionally passing by the third floor window of your office.
Right? Because unfortunately, and as I explained to some New Yorkers the other day, we can't build a subway because
in Chicago terms, I need to demonstrate with both of my beers what passing by the third floor window of your office means in Chicago terms, because I had forgotten this until I went there in June.
Right?
Because damn, that shit goes close.
Right? Because we can't build a subway here in Nashville, because we sit on a solid slab of rock.
Right. I mean, you could, but you talk about expensive.
Right? It's going to be super expensive to build a subway.
We have to drill first. How long will that take?
Although I do point out to people that Nashville does actually have a subway. In the early 1900s, they did actually build a small subway.
Where?
Downtown. The subway station is still there.
Where?
You're going to ask me, and I'm not going to be able to tell you, but the ruins of that subway station are still there underground. They built a test subway. And now Lucas is going to go try and Google foo the existence of this thing. I've been told that I may be wrong. I may be full of shit. I have been told by multiple people that it exists.
I think you are full of shit, because I've never heard that and I don't see it. But what Nashville did have was a fantastic light rail trolley system that was.
Oh yeah, I mean and that's
once upon a time.
You know what I get from the remainder of the trolley system? I get tourists on the brew hop, because they keep on just reselling the trolleys to new people. But yes, we used to have a trolley system. The only problem is with the amount of traffic that we have right now, a streetcar system simply doesn't make sense unless we build massive parking lots at the edge of the city for people to park and then get on these streetcars. That would be another solution. But I think honestly, at the end of the day, given the size that we've grown to,
Yeah.
and L is the only answer that we really have at this point. A streetcar system simply won't work well enough. But anyway, back to the point.
So the similarity here being, these redneck ass states interfering in the needs of cities is a phenomenon that's pretty much nationwide and pretty common. And in this case, in Jackson, it is 100%.
And to play games with water, is even worse.
Yeah.
It's
like
just,
transit is one of those things where you kind of have an alternative. It sucks, but it's not going to like disease people, or at least not as quickly. But fucking, I mean, water is you see the fucking signs. Water is life, right?
But like as someone who works in the hospitality industry, restaurants can't operate without clean water.
Right.
Hotels can't operate without clean water. That it's devastating to businesses, and
the economy is basically off like a light switch when the water's fucked.
Also, you can't operate schools, and they've made this point. If I can't give a child a drink of water in a school because I would have to sit there and boil it.
Yep. But that just goes back to what we've been talking about the last few weeks, David. The destruction of public education is completely intentional and desired by these right-wing fucks. And if they create these kinds of problems, they don't really give a shit because all they want is private school, and those are all in the white suburbs that you referenced.
Right. It is. But again, we rely on the economic activity that happens inside the city, right? And I want to point out that, Rob, coming back to your comment, that's no longer safe to drink. We used to rely on rainwater to be safe to drink, but unfortunately the pH of the rainwater and also the fact that apparently microplastics can still end up in rainwater.
We used to. What era are you talking about? Because when I was a kid, all they did was talk about acid rain.
Right, and we're right back to it. But the thing is, the acid rain it's going to come. It never happened. Now it's here. But except it's not really acid rain. It's the fact that forever chemicals and
it's paraben rain.
Microplastics have ruined the rainwater, right? Because they don't go away in the process of sublimation. So now we don't drink the rainwater.
Yeah.
It's bad. We're not in a good situation, and the problem is Jackson, I'm gonna say, is a potential canary in the coal mine for every southern metropolis, and I think Atlanta is big enough, and the relationship that the Georgia legislature has with Atlanta is such that Atlanta's not going to be the next one to go. I would argue that we're looking at Birmingham and Mobile probably next. Having failing systems, Austin.
Well, and let's not ignore this is twofold. This is, part infrastructure neglect, but it's also part climate change denial. It's the reality that we know this shit is happening. This is the drum I'm beating up here in Michigan. Because I don't have any room. I've given no quarter to the excuse about not being prepared for storms. So when we got up here last summer, I was blown away at how much of a massive outage a thunderstorm caused in the state. And I started asking questions. And the answer I got from a lot of people was like, well, we're not used to that up here. Really? Because I made fun of the South most of my adult life for saying, well, we aren't used to snow, so we don't know how to handle snow. Well, how many fucking years of snow do you need? So my question for anybody who's not ready for storms or flooding, how many fucking years do you need to get the point? In the South, flooding. We've been telling you it's a problem. We were telling you it was coming. You were too busy calling it a hoax so that you could lie to your trailer park fucking voting base and get their support and stay in office.
Forget the trailer park voting base. I mean, like there is the definite suburban voting base that they were looking at. I would argue that this is one of the reasons why Republicans are now having more trouble is in the suburbs. So like, my neighborhood flooded.
Mm. Yeah, kind of like us around here with
maybe
trees.
climate change is real. Because again, like one of my arguments for again for an L is we need to recognize the fact that we sit in a basin. We're going to become Venice.
Yeah. Rob points out that Jackson's nearly like Haiti right now. Does that mean Trump calls Mississippi a shithole? I mean,
he already did. He just didn't say it to their faces because he wants them to vote.
I called Mississippi a shithole before Trump ever coined it. So I mean,
but I mean, like, but it is shocking that, and again, the state's Republican governor is currently trying to like suddenly spring to action and be like, no, you needed two, plants, 10 years ago.
Yeah, the time to spring to action was before this fucker ever had a political career in the mailman's glint of an eye. Like it just or the glint of a mailman's eye. Like it just doesn't compute. His whole fucking apparatus has been ignoring the need before, during, and after his tenure. This is a decidedly harsh result of right-wing dumb fuckery, and there's just no reason for it. The modern Marvel world we live in, I mean, we could solve all these fucking problems, but we don't, because we have one side that wants to bullshit about it and lie about it. And then, of course, David, we had this last week. We didn't need it, but we got it. And now we need it this week, because really what we're talking about is the true colors getting shown on these motherfuckers. And that is why we've introduced a new graphic, ladies and gentlemen, for the GQP. And that's really what's going on here.
Yeah. There's too many black people in Jackson. There's too many black, because I mean, if you look at Jackson and Memphis are very closely tied. It is a solid majority African-American strip, in the same way that for so often in Alabama, the Black Belt, which is not supposed to not be a reference to the skin color, but a reference to the soil,
whatever,
but so often ends up being a reference to the skin color in Alabama of areas that are predominantly African-American. And again, they look at Jackson and they say, oh, well, it's mostly black people. And I think and I'm going to be honest. I think
a lot of communities have one of those, David. When everybody comes to Nashville and they're partying in Sobro, they should probably understand that Sobro is only one of multiple communities, one of which is Black Bottom.
Right.
And the other one is Pie Town.
I want to point out, what the fuck is Sobro? What the fuck? Like, literally, we would have never. We would have never called it Sobro. It's just Broadway. It's just,
I mean, over here in Grand Rapids, we have South Division and it's SoDiv. So
I have never once in my entire life talking to another native called it Sobro.
I can't really make a cultural statement on that, because the problem was that I was in a marketing position for a company that was located there. So Sobro was a very common phrase for me, but it's also very big on branding.
Yeah, it's a marketing term. It's not something any native would ever call.
It's kind of like the trolley barns that never had fucking trolleys in them.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of little weird things like that. I would point out, David, that it is your people that came up with all these. We didn't have a WeHo or a Sobro or a SoDiv before the the millennials showed up in the
You
conversation.
mean the California? I am like I literally got into so the Trumper that I had to get into a fight with at the bar the other night.
And by fight, he means verbal debate that was heated.
Verbal debate, yeah. Just to clarify, where was he from? California.
Oh, so
from
he was
California.
drinking at the wrong place. He really should have been at Bold Patriot.
Oh damn! Oh,
You know, Bold Patriot is where the California white nationalists congregate.
oh,
You know,
dirty.
I think it was on
dirty.
was it on our page? It might have been on our page that I dinged somebody for a picture of Bold Patriot. Yeah, it was. It was the California the asshole that's the editor for the Tennessean now that came from California.
Oh, that guy. Did he put up a picture of Bold Patriot?
In the article, no, it's not him. In the
Jesus, what a
LA
fucking
Times
cockfight.
article, in the LA Times article about how great and smart he is coming to the South to save everybody from being stupid shitheels that couldn't possibly have fucking run a newspaper without him for the past 100 fucking years. In the middle of that article was a photo of the Bold Patriot people, a little caption, Bold Patriot Brewing relocated California today. They didn't even bother to address the fact that they're basically neo-Nazis with their fucking, you know, suburban militarized Jeeps with their blue striped flags.
I don't have enough things around me right now. I cleaned earlier today.
For those that
Therefore,
are
I don't
newer,
have things to throw.
for those that are newer to our situation, David and I, the biggest egg on our face in doing this project,
Oh Jesus!
was the fact
that still pisses me off.
we thought it was so cool that there was this nifty brewery.
The sad thing is the beer tasted good, but they're Nazi.
Yeah, the beer was great at Bold Patriot. And they were close to my house in Nashville, and they were in a really cool historic building that had been well preserved and revitalized. It was fucking great. And the bartenders were smoking hot.
They were so hot.
But we should have known that the bullet garter tattoos on their thighs were a dead
Something was
giveaway.
wrong. Something was wrong.
In the middle of our broadcast live from Bold Patriot, a person that I'm not going to throw them under the bus. I'm not going to throw this person under the bus by mentioning their name, but a person that knows literally everything about beer in the Southeast
Oh Jesus!
messages me and says, you know, Bold Patriot is straight up white supremacist, right? And we're sitting there on the air and I see the message. I'm like, oh, fuck. Oh, okay.
And we sit there and talk to him, and we're like,
They
afterwards,
were nice. Like face
they were very
value,
nice,
they
but,
were
like,
nice.
we realized by talking to them, like, oh no, oh no.
I have
Oh
to wonder.
no! We're this is the house of the Nazi.
I have to wonder how many of those motherfuckers were straight up right there on the steps on January 6th.
Oh Jesus Christ!
Because that was wasn't that pre-insurrection?
Yeah, that was very much
Yeah.
pre-insurrection. That's very much pre-insurrection. But I mean, like, no, I mean,
Anyway, the bottom line.
You know what? That'll be an entirely different like pet issue. Probably, I guess next week now, because we'll have time of the Californian invasion of Tennessee, which is just it makes no fucking sense.
Well,
I'm
I
gonna tell
mean,
you this-
it kind of does though, because the trendy city right now is Nashville. So if you're
no,
going
but
to leave
I'm
the
saying
ooh la la of California, you go for a trendy spot, and Nashville leads that charge at the moment. I'm sure it used to be Atlanta and Charlotte and Austin. In fact, I would love to have that study, and I know the data exists somewhere. I just don't really care to do the work. I'm sure there's a migratory period of time that you could draw from like California to Austin, California to Charlotte, California to Atlanta, California to Nashville. I'm just up here trying to keep the California to Grand Rapids from being a total fucking disaster.
Dude.
Anyway, the bottom line here, the takeaway, folks, as we wrap up is us, you know, tree hugging lefty commies have been for 20 years sitting around going,
I mean,
and
no,
nobody
but
fucking
again,
wanted to listen, and now Jackson's fucked.
I mean, and to wrap it up, we need to understand how fucked Jackson is. If you want to go to a restaurant and eat food, you can't.
Nope.
If you want to go to a public park, drink a water out of a fountain, you can't. If you want to send your kids to school, you can't.
Nope.
If you want to do anything in Jackson, you can't because there is no drinkable fucking water. And the state has no mechanism for providing enough clean water on demand to make any of those things function.
You know what I need? I need Biden, while he's busy at least pretending to have found his balls, to start doing a whole
Right.
lot of "I told you so" and a whole lot of "you're welcome." There needs to be a posture, a very rip a page out of John Fetterman's literal personality of
You know what? If
"You're
Biden wants to
welcome,
secure
and I
my
told
vote,
you so."
if Biden wants to secure my vote for his supposed upcoming run for re-election, I want him to park his ass in fucking Jackson and be like, "Bring me a fucking glass of water."
That would be amazing.
That you know what? That would seriously be a moment of, here are my balls on the table right now, and to look at that GQP governor who could not say repeatedly on multiple, like, "Oh, I'm a reasonable Republican. I'm a reasonable Republican," who could not say on multiple talk shows whether or not he acknowledged the legitimacy of the election. Right?
Right.
I want him to say, Governor Fucknuts can show up here at this diner that I'm eating at right now that I can't eat at because it's closed because they have no clean drinkable water. I want him to come here with me and have a glass of water.
Now, David, before we go, Rob commented on this earlier, but it wasn't time to jump in on it. But the political / election good news of the evening as we depart.
Palin lost her special.
Palin not only lost her special election in Alaska, but the Democrat won. Democrat Mary Peltola won the special election to fill Alaska's House seat for the remainder of 2022, according to the unofficial results released by the Alaskan Division of Elections, thwarting former Governor Palin's bid at political comeback.
Holy
was-
shit. Alaska just elected a Democratic U.S. representative.
Yep. And through ranked choice.
Holy shit.
Yep.
The GOP has got to be shitting their pants right now.
Y'all done came for the uterus and y'all done fucked up. And that is how we're going to finish this shit out.
Damn.
And we will be back next week, normal time, Thursday night. Though it was really great to see everybody on Wednesday. And I'm sure by next week we'll have all kinds of cool stuff. We're trying to do an all Monday night brewing. Since I'm going to Atlanta, I'm hoping to pick up some Monday night brewing. David's going to pick up some Monday night brewing. And we're going to do Monday night brewing as our big feature of our beer reviews. And then, of course, who knows what kind of shit will hit the fan in 1 week's time. So we have no idea what the topic will be, but we look forward to seeing you here. And if you want to spread the word, tell your friends, invite your mom. Don't. And
No, do invite
give
your
us a
mom.
like and a follow.
Do invite your mom.
If your mom's
Educate
cool,
her.
invite your mom.
Yeah.
If your mom's a MILF, David's phone number is 615. No, anyway. We will wish you, as always, as we sign off, a good night
Good evening
and
and
good luck.
good luck.